Welcome to the Undiscovered Gems podcast, hosted by NBA legend and business powerhouse Charles D. Smith, highlighting today's best and brightest business minds.
Yes, I'm your host, Charles D. Smith, and I am so excited to have Marianne Pass with us today. Marianne is a hypnotherapist. She's representing a franchise called Quantum Healing. It was founded by a woman by the name of Dolores Cannon 40 years ago. And Marianne's going to tell us a lot about the franchise. We're going to find out a lot about her and what she does. Marianne, welcome to the show.
Hi, I'm very excited to be here today.
I don't think you're more excited than I am in having you on the show today because, Marianne, in today's world, everything is about alternative medicine, alternative food, eat healthy, let your body do the healing for itself. There's so much going on today, and you have a lot of information. But we're going to start off early. We're going to just kind of tell a story and bring our audience along so they can go along for the ride. So, Marianne, I just want to ask you, first, tell us about quantum healing. What is it?
Well, if you picture physics, our body is basically particles that are vibrating at a certain frequency in tune with everything around us so that we are not gliding right through matter. So we are all at the same frequency. Now, what we found out is that if energy is added from another source, it balances. So that's basically how it was explained. Every time when we do sessions, when the healing happens, energy is added. So that's the simplest way to explain it. That's why it's called quantum healing. So it's on a nuclear level, like on a molecular level. And we don't understand this energy, but we can experience it. So that's what happened when this work was developed. So I'm explaining how Dolores Cannon was a very simple woman. She raised her family. Her husband in the army dabbled with hypnosis. And one day he found they got a client. They were asked to help her. And when they put her under hypnosis, so her husband did the work actually, she suddenly slipped into another time and spoke with a different accent. And out of that developed the book 5 Lives Remembered that Dolores finally published. And then 25 years later, her husband passed away, and then she started getting very interested in hypnosis. That was in the 70s. And she developed this technique to first just have people be aware that we have memories inside of us. That was the first thing. And then something weird happened. At the end of the session, suddenly the client would talk differently. And Dolores went, who am I talking to? And that's when she discovered this other part of us that has knowledge and is able to help us with physical issues. But there is no quick fix. It's not like someone snaps the finger. We have to do the work, us, because our emotions are directly connected to our body, to our physical body. So the way we think, she basically explained it like we are God in the body. Whatever we think and feel, our cells feel and feel basically. So our cells are conscious. Not many people are aware of that. So in order to get into any kind of healing, we need to be positive and loving and grateful. Those are the frequencies of our thoughts that help us be healthy. Anyway, so that's basically the beginning of the healing work. But it's not just about healing. It's about understanding certain things, that we are way more powerful than we think we are. Anyway, So,
Hmm. So Marianne, you said quite a few things that
mhm,
intrigued my interest. You know, when you mentioned that there's energy that, you know, balances out our frequency, we're all frequency. Now, I
yeah,
was told, and I tried this, walk around barefoot in the yard, in the grass, you know, let your feet anchor you in the
yeah,
energy. And I have done that plenty of times where I felt so much better from a, you know, I have arthritic parts of my body, knee, wrist, different things. And I can't tell whether it's the energy from the earth that's helping that out, but I'll walk around barefoot in the yard in the grass for, I mean, an extended period of time. Does that have something to do with what you're talking about?
well, honestly, I can't tell you this at this point because I need to explain a little more.
Hmm.
Um, what basically, first of all, I want to explain that this is a knowledge we acquire through the client. So we do not, there is no theory behind it except we ask the question when a person is in trance. So I got back to the beginning. How do we work? So a client comes to me with either physical issues, emotional issues, questions about jobs, love, and what we first have to talk. That's why the session can be up to 7 hours, 5 to 7 hours.
Wow.
The shortest is 4 hours, 4.5. But the higher self, I explain that afterwards, that part that we are addressing that can do the work, because as a hypnotherapist, my job is to just get the person relaxed and keep asking questions because you're going into a natural state of trance where you almost are asleep. So it's a very natural way of being, like twice a day, you're in that state of trance in the morning when you wake up and you still have your eyes closed and you remember the dream. That's the theta state we're working in. In order for the client to not fall asleep, I keep talking. If they fall asleep, that's wonderful because I can pull them gently out again. So then I know I'm having them in exactly the right spot. The only people who have problems getting under are people who are too eager to see something. It's not about the client. The client goes to sleep. He goes into a wonderful state of relaxation. We're dealing with another part of this person, with a wonderful part that has answers. And so, first, what happens is when the client relaxes, he starts to see things like a memory. The memory can be this life, memory of the childhood, extreme detailed memory. Like they're describing where they lived, their bedroom, the toys, uh, absolute great detail. They know everything still from this life. So they sing it like either a movie or they're knowing it. And the other thing that can happen is they're going into a memory they were not aware of. We call it a past life, but I cannot distinguish if it's our past life or if it's just something we have access to. So this is, I'm not even limiting it. It's a memory, but the memory has a beginning and it has an end. So you cannot say it's a dream because it is logical. You can move in it forward and backwards. I can move the person, go back to the beginning when you were young. You can move back when you were old. And then we're ending that. My
Hmm.
job is to figure out why we're seeing that because I'm not deciding what they're seeing.
I see.
Something is shown to them. There is a higher intelligence behind this work, and it's absolutely fascinating. We call it the higher self. Now, we all have a higher self. It is not, it is not when you meet it, and this is the fascinating part, to talk to this part of the person is very, how do I say this? It's a great honor to talk to this energy. And
Hmm.
they are having answers for any questions that the client writes down beforehand, because I'm basically just asking questions. And they're answering, and I'm recording the whole thing. And afterwards, I'm asking the clients to listen to this recording as often as they need to, because it is absolutely fascinating when you hear this other part. It is something that you usually do not experience. Now, this other part can be very loving and funny. It can be very distant and sometimes quite, how do I say this? One of my clients, she actually got quite reprimanded for something she was doing to her children. She was keeping them in a state of not letting go of the dead husband of their father. So she kept them in mourning. And they warned her, they said, please let them go, don't keep them there. So, and there were other things they told her, but she was quite taken back by that afterwards. So it comes out of the client. I don't know anything. I am just there to ask questions and to help the client get the answers.
Right.
Now, any other question? Ask, but click in, tell me.
Yeah, absolutely. Before we go further, I do want to talk to you about being in this kind of REM state of consciousness. But before I go there, I want to ask, how did you get into this work, Marianne? It's very fascinating. How did you get into it?
Well, a friend of mine about 4 years ago told me about Dolores Cannon, and I went online and I got her books. I listened to her books. All her books are sessions. So she basically researched a lot, but she put all her books are what she experienced with her clients. And then my mom got sick, and I hired somebody in Europe. My mom was in Munich. I'm German, by the way. And I hired this lady from Berlin to go and do the work with her. And she charged me basically the highest price you can charge for this work. And I had a very big upset because my mom did not get enough into it. She did not understand it enough. And I said, I'm not going to do this again. I'm going to learn this and then work with my mom myself. And that motivated me. I was like, I had a time limit. My mom had severe cancer. And within 2 months, I did both courses. And I rushed to Germany during COVID. And we started working. And I was fortunate to at least help my mom let go of a lot of upsets, because her cancer was caused by severe disappointment. And we found out afterwards that her older sister had been a severe narcissist. And my mom basically didn't know that she experienced all her life this severe narcissistic abuse and always felt that she wasn't good enough. And that we didn't understand. But my mom developed this cancer right in the beginning of her stomach, where we have the anger area. When you feel anger, that's where she got the cancer. Now, after we worked a little, I have to say the lymphatic system went down, but my mom could not get to the root. It was not possible, and she passed away within about 3 weeks that we worked. But I was fortunate to be able to put her in a light state of trance. There was no fear. She left with open eyes. This was for me like the initiation into the work. She left. I had to feel, have to experience. I can't describe it. It is so overwhelming when you actually see a person leave. And deep down, it helped me that I understood that I do believe she still exists. I did experience her in my thoughts for a very short time. It was a very strange experience. So if you had told me 4 years ago that I would ever have to deal with this, I would have said never. I did not think I would ever experience something like this. So it is a very, very fascinating work, and it is the ultimate test. That was for me the ultimate test that this is real. This is not just some kind of game.
Sure.
And and then I was very fortunate that I had wonderful sessions, and I still have wonderful sessions all the time, which confirm that this is going deeper than we understand. But to understand the whole thing is, we as humans, we need to understand we are way, way more powerful. We are not just this little character we're playing right now. And
Well, yeah, well, Marianne, I'd like to say the fact that, it's proven that we use so much of a small part of our brains through our lifetime, such a minute part of our massive brain and what it can do. And then you hear about things that you're doing, uh, various feats that other people do based on their minds and their physical being, and they always talk about it's mental. So there's so much in this world that we don't know about that people like you tap into different areas of education to give us all a better understanding of what happens with us as human beings. You talked about the unconscious state, that REM state when you're talking to someone. It's like they're not totally asleep, but their eyes are closed.
yes,
I understand that. I get that. Tell me why you need to have a person in that sort of state to progress and help them get to where they need to be, and for your work to be a bit more successful for them.
yeah, the problem is when we do this work, we're shutting down the left side of the brain, the
Uh,
reason and ration. We go into the state of dreams and
uh,
emotions and memories. That's the right side of the brain. And in order to, if we had found the answers with a reasonable mind, we would have gotten them. But the problem is the access, it's like we have to go through the back door to get to the memories. We all have memories of what we have experienced before this life, each and every one of us. We just don't know how to access them. And honestly, sometimes you have very vivid dreams, and sometimes the memory comes into a dream, but this is different. This is a totally, completely different access to a reality that we usually do not have access to. And it's absolutely fascinating. Um, yeah, tell me, any
any,
question?
yeah, anyone who knows me very well for 20 years, I have been saying that God speaks to me or I get information in that state. That's why I asked you the question, sort of
Yeah,
self-serving. But when I am in that state, things are clear. And when I begin to come out of it, I force myself to remember what I saw, what I was doing, like that dream that you're talking about. I force myself to try to remember it so I don't move too quickly to try to grasp as much as I can. But Marianne, I've moved forward in my life by acting upon what was stated to me and what I saw for the last 20 plus years without fail. Without fail, and it's always worked out for me. And so I've learned to embrace it, and that's part of like who I am. I don't tell many people about it because people don't understand these things, and obviously I'll talk to you because you do understand a lot of the things that I question, and I'm hearing you talk about it. This is not an interview. This is like a therapy session. We're going live, so this is great for
yeah.
me. So,
I
so
actually want to point out this is what I want to mention.
mhm.
Anybody can hear this higher self. They said if you wake up in the morning, it's easier to do it in the morning. Do not open your eyes, just stay in that state where you still
uh,
remember and
uh,
ask one question and listen for the very first thought that comes to mind because we dismiss our thoughts. This comes from deeper when you're still in Veda. That is the beginning of how we can hear them. But I warn people, you have to be in that state. You cannot be it when you're awake totally. Then it doesn't work anymore. And they said this is how we should start listening to them. Now comes something else I want to share. Once I learned this work, I was very eager to help everybody. And then weird things start to happen. I bumped my head, I bumped my foot, I bumped my arm, which never happens. I'm not a clumsy person. And I realized that I'm getting messages in a way through my physical body. This is what they say. The right side of your body is now when they give us messages. The left side is from the past. Anything happens to your foot, or your knee, your arm, your hand, your shoulder is a message like, what are you carrying on your shoulder? Move forward. I had hip surgery before I knew about Dolores Cannon on the right side. Now the right side is now. I was living an idle life, a wonderful life, but I wasn't doing what I really came to do. And that was for me the explanation why that happened. They pushed and pushed and pushed and pushed, and I still didn't get the message. And then finally, I had to have surgery, and now I realize I could have avoided it if I had known what was communicated. The communication was move forward in a different direction. And
Right.
I finally am doing it, and I'm doing physically wonderful. But these are the messages. Anybody who is experiencing already symptoms in the left side or right side of the body, they can ask in this state also. So you don't always need, but it's good to have it confirmed when you actually do a session. But everybody has access to this higher part of ourselves. And that's very important to know. We are born with a guidance system, but we need to ask. And they are not God. God is so much bigger. This guidance system is, they call themselves a group consciousness. Dolores has gone into detail about how she tried to figure out they coming the same way. Her books were basically told to her from a person in England. Then she goes to Australia. The same way talks to, and I experienced them. Actually, I got some messages. They have asked me, I'm doing this interview with you, and I didn't ask to even do this. I was called and I said, sure, I talk about hypnosis. And I had a session, and the lady that went under suddenly says, I'm in the dark. I am a thought in someone else's mind. And I'm like, oh, I was like totally confused. I've never had that happen. I didn't ask whose mind. I was so And then they said, this work should not be commercialized nor sensationalized. It is a natural way of accessing our inner resources. And it's fascinating. It is a daily thing. People can get daily information, and if they want clarity, they should do a session. And it is absolutely fascinating that we are never alone. This is very important. A lot of people are in so much despair and depression. We are never alone. They're always here. And they're always saying it in the session. Have more joy. You're never alone. We just don't experience the world like that. But once you do a session, you get to understand that. It is absolutely fascinating. We're not supposed to suffer. We're supposed to learn something here. We're supposed to learn about limitations and emotions. And that's the biggest part of my work, is to get to see people before we do the session, what emotions are present. And the emotions that are negative are upset, resentfulness. We need to let go of everything that is negative. And why that is so important is because we right now only see a tiny, tiny bit of the picture. We do not know what contracts we have with other people. We do not know why certain things are happening to us. And we think it's so unfair, or this and that. Fact is, we are never victims. That is the most important sentence. We are never victims. And the other thing is, we're never judged. No one, the universe does not judge. Only we humans judge each other.
Right. And Marianne, I wanna ask you about, you talked about higher self and you began to touch on, negative emotions. And earlier you mentioned that, you know, cancer with your mom was caused by severe disappointment. And we hear this so much that it's almost like we have these illnesses and things that are dormant in our body. And when we experience severe negative trauma or depression, or we go into a dark place, it like opens up, and then all of a sudden the person is ill. I've seen that happen to relatives and friends. I don't know, but and you mentioned it, there's got to be something to that. How negative energy and emotions can bring out, you know, illness. I guess that's what I want to say. What are your thoughts on that?
It's basically we don't trust that there's something to learn. When someone hurts us, we need to say, look at it and say, what is there to learn here? What is it? What is it that don't get? And it is the victim. Everybody needs to watch out to not be a victim, because the victim consciousness causes us harm, physical harm. And I'm not saying this lightly, because I just experienced a narcissistic friend that caused me some harm, and I didn't know what it was but it was, how do I say this? Not judging this person. They are very sick people that run around trying to deal with their own problems by not realizing what harm they're doing to others. So in that way, we learn, be indifferent. That's where we need to get in every situation, like in the Buddhist way. Just accept it and check it out and be aware that we are precious. That is the most important part. That's
Yeah,
how we get to our source, by being aware that we are incredibly precious.
sure.
And
We always have people that pass off their negative energy to others, and we all have to be careful of that and who we're around.
exactly.
Marianne, this interview is coming to a close, and I just want you to, give some final thoughts that you want to share with our audience. What is it you would like them to know from this interview? What is their takeaway?
First of all, there is always hope. I have seen incredible things happen in front of my eyes. Physical. I have seen people completely change in their personality. A young woman, anything, there's always hope. No matter what you're dealing with, there is always another way. And it's absolutely fantastic to watch that. Anything is possible when we are able to accept it. That's the message, because you need to be able to allow it, no matter what you need to have dealt with, whether it's physical or emotional.
Okay, Marianne,
And
go ahead. I'm sorry. Please finish.
yeah, that's what I want to let people know. There is always hope. And try it out when you're laying in bed in the morning. Have a question in mind, ask the question, and trust the first thought. You learn how you get connected. Even by listening to this, you're already getting connected to this other part. This is why I invested energy to represent everybody who's doing this work, because it's not the person who does the session, it's the higher self who does this work. And
Marianne,
that's fascinating.
your words have been undiscovered gems to our audience. So much information, so much knowledge. I know whoever hears this, I want them to see your email at the bottom to contact you. And Marianne, I want to really appreciate you for coming on the show. What a great show and great information. Thanks so much.
Thank you.
All right.
We hope you enjoyed this episode of Undiscovered Gems with our host, Charles D. Smith, highlighting today's best and brightest business minds. Brought to you by Pods Entertainment Group.